Good morning. My name is Kat Climaco. I am the lead divorce, custody, and co-parenting coach here at Peaceful Presence Divorce Coaching. Welcome to another event in the Peaceful Presence Divorce Coaching Lunch and Learn series. Navigating a divorce, and especially an abusive one, takes a village, and I'm so glad you're here. Throughout this series, you're going to hear from experts like our guest today who have generously donated their time and their wisdom to help us navigate, rebuild, and heal during the journey. So if you have questions today during the conversation, put them in the chat anytime, and I'll make sure that we get to them at the Q&A portion at the end. Just a quick reminder before we get started that today's session is being recorded for those who couldn't make it live. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest speaker. Brianna Beski is a certified divorce financial analyst who helps high-achieving professionals navigate divorce with clarity, confidence, and control. She is a former Olympic hopeful whose journey reshaped her identity, and someone who witnessed the impact of toxic marriage firsthand. She understands the emotional and financial toll of major life decisions like divorce. So, Brianna, thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to hear the top questions you get asked as a financial expert.
Yeah, very, very excited to be chatting with you. So couple questions people ask very often on the Olympic thing. I was hopeful for modern decathlon during the 2008 games. So that's shooting, fencing, running, swimming, and horseback riding. They don't do horseback riding anymore, thankfully, because some of those horses were mean. Um,
Wow.
as you
That's quite
alluded,
the event, Brianna. I mean, like,
it
that's a lot
was.
of different things to train for.
It was very good. And I think in retrospect, I may have a neurodivergent, thought process. And it was great for me as a teenager. It worked out really well. Every day was a little bit different, and I could go back to whichever one was exciting at the time.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. But I share that because I didn't make the Olympics. And I kid you not, as a teenager, I did everything I could. I moved across country. I bent over backwards to get the coaches. I talked up myself to everyone who would listen so I could get more support. I even got a full ride to college, and then I got injured.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I can tell you a lot of people were not thrilled and rather disappointed, which sucked. And I share that because stuff happens and I want to be vulnerable in terms of stuff happens. So I saw that firsthand.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the most tangible example that I have in my life story. In terms of why I get so passionate about divorce and why I love what you're doing is you're right. I did witness a divorce firsthand with my parents. So I got married at 26. It was a very beautiful ceremony. And at the reception, my mother shared with everybody that she was going to divorce my dad. And that sucked. So you could imagine with a start like that, it
Yeah.
was a pretty acrimonious split. Both my mom and dad are calling me talking about how they're running out of money. Both my mom and dad are calling me talking about how they're taking on debt. And both my mom and dad are talking to me about how they may not be paying back their debt, which is very stressful to hear, but not the low point. The low point came with a phone call from my little brother.
Yeah.
And my brother calls me up and he says, "Hey, I've got a problem. And I'm a big sister." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. How can I help?" And he says very clearly, I'll never forget, "I don't want my mom to die in a flop house." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
"I don't want my dad to be homeless on the street. You have a finished basement. I do not. What are we going to do?" And it hit me like a ton of bricks. The decisions you make during divorce aren't just your own.
Yeah.
They affect your kids, your siblings, your family, your friends, and your community. So having access to information like you're providing, it's so meaningful to helping people get back on their feet. It's huge.
Well, Brianna, I'm sorry you went through that. That's sounds traumatic, but and
Yeah.
helping people understand that they're not alone, right? Everybody has a story that's gone through divorce, that's different, but it shapes the way we think and the decisions that we make for our entire life going forward. And so I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Anytime. But as a result, I am very passionate about sharing knowledge because in divorce, knowledge is power. These are facts. So what I'm prepared to chat with everyone about today are the top questions I get asked.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one question I get asked, regardless of the situation, is do I have enough cash to do this? Where do I get the cash? What is the most effective way?
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, Kat, you and I'm sure many of your listeners know that divorce is really freaking expensive between legal fees, mediation. I have so many clients where, spouse stops paying the bills, or some
Yeah.
scenarios where they might have to move out and replace everything.
Yeah.
Um, so the first place I recommend is savings and investments. As a financial advisor, I'm telling you the tax is already paid on that. That would be the easiest. It's not always available, which is why I talk about other options. Um, I do see people use credit cards. I say yes. However, and there's a however, approach this with caution. You want to be thinking about what kind of debt you're digging yourself into. What is the interest rate? Because as painful and long as that seems, divorce is just a season, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want to be able to get to the other side of, I would argue, this bullshit and
Mm-hmm.
be able to get back on your feet. So if you're digging yourself into a hole, what kind of a hole are you digging yourself out into, and how are you going to get yourself out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see people borrow money from friends and family all the time.
Yep.
Um, Another place many people don't think about is if you have a 401k, you can take a loan out from that. I would say be cautious, because if that asset is going to be divided later on, there may be ramifications that are not apparent upfront. And I'm happy to chat about that more if you like.
Yep.
And then the last place, and I put it last for a reason, is IRAs. You're under 59 and a half. In addition to paying the taxes, there's also a penalty, which honestly sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it could be more expensive, to be very transparent, than you expect.
Yeah. That makes sense. And, one thing I tell people all the time, that I appreciate what you're saying, like, this is a season. Make sure you have a plan to get out of debt if you're going to responsibly take it on to help yourself get through this season of life. I think that's really great. And also, remembering that it's important to get done what you need to get done in divorce. Have your
Yeah.
support circle, have your team of people around you, your CDFA, your divorce coach, your attorney, your therapist, whatever it is, right? Have those people around you, because you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
chances are, when you're making decisions from a place of trauma or stress or heartbreak or whatever it is, you're not making the best decisions. And so relying on people around you who are experts, who know what they're doing, who've navigated this path before, it may feel like you're spending more money up front, but in the long run, it's probably going to save you a lot more money. And there are things that I wish that I had done in my divorce right off the bat that I ended up having to do later because I tried to save myself money. And I ended up having to just go back and do a bunch of things over again because I was trying to save money out of the gate. So I think it's really good advice to say, hey, I know the advice is don't touch your IRA or your 401k or don't open up credit cards. But if that's what you have to do to bridge the gap, I think I think probably a lot of people needed to hear a financial advisor say that, right? So
I
like,
mean,
to
here's the
just give
reality. You
permission.
got to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight up,
Right.
you do. And that's important. And actually, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I had a case where the client um, had, so they decided they were going to save money, DIY as much as possible. The paperwork was a little bit of a challenge, so they hired someone to help them with the paperwork,
Hmm.
and that was it.
Yeah.
So every time there's a form, they're paying for that.
Yep.
That process took over a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
They
Yeah.
attended something like this and realized, that's not normal,
Yeah.
and ended up hiring a legal professional. And then the legal professional, I was involved too, It took less than 3 months to get it tied up.
Yeah.
That's it. And she's able to move on with her life. She got more than she thought she would. So she got everything she asked for. And it's done. She can move on with her life.
Yeah.
So that is something that I think is really important. And as you said, like divorce coaches, especially, like how many divorces have you been through? Like I can tell you, I've done more than 60.
Right.
It's not
Right.
your first rodeo, and you can help guide people through a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and that kind of goes to my second question is what about the timing of divorce? Because you know better than anyone, this is a look before you leap scenario, right? And very often when people first see me, they're in the preparation stages. They may be chatting with attorneys. They, chat GPT said to chat with the CDFA. So here I am. Um, and they're trying to figure out like, what don't I know? And the
Hmm.
biggest thing I share that everyone kind of raises their eyebrows on is you want to make sure the timing is right for you. And there are a few ways, not just like, yes, you want to make sure that you've got support handled and your family situation is taken care of, especially if there are littles involved. But like, are you aware that for Social Security, if you've been married for 10 years or longer, you qualify for spousal benefits?
Hmm.
It's not negotiated. The spouse doesn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't even affect new spouses because I've had some people like, oh, I don't want to take money out of their mouth. You're not. It's a system you've been paying into. Take advantage of it.
Right.
Um, and I've seen a disconcerting number of cases where, again, they didn't know. They just didn't know. And they got divorced at like 9 years and 6 months. I kid
Hmm.
you not. I don't know why it's 9 years and 6 months, but I swear to Pete, like all the times I ran into it, it is there.
Yeah.
Um, I
That's a
mean,
good thing to be mindful of. I mean, there are different laws that have just passed here in Colorado. You can, for example, if spousal support goes the other way in Colorado, if you are a domestic violence victim, you do not have to pay maintenance to your abuser. That law
that's
just recently
awesome.
passed,
I
which is
love that.
thank goodness, because that's just adding salt to the wound, right? But then, in Colorado, you can get maintenance at even fewer years than 10 years. So there are things absolutely to consider. Make sure that you know what the timelines are, what the requirements are, what to ask for, things like that. I love that. I love that idea of really think about the timing, right? And for some people, they can't hang on another 6 months, but others, if you hang on another 6 months, it's going to put you in a significantly better financial position than you would have if you didn't. So I think that that's good
Yeah.
to be mindful of. Yeah.
Um, the other thing is when you're being thoughtful in advance and you're chatting and doing your work, I would also say whip out your cell phone. I've got one with a camera on the back. Start taking pictures and the safety deposit box. Some
Yeah.
people have vaults. Make sure you have evidence it existed before it walks away because you would be horrified with how often that stuff does. I'd actually argue that documentation is probably your secret weapon in divorce. So really ask yourself, like, how organized are you? And with that, the top question I get asked there is like, what do I need? Because some
Hmm.
people just like they didn't have anything to do with the finances
Yeah.
and they just don't know. So if you're going to get one document, get your tax return.
Yeah. Smart.
And so here's the thing. Some people are like, yeah, but he took care of it or it's with the CPA. I don't even know where to go for a copy. Did you know on the IRS website, you can log on through yourself? I mean, there are a few hoops because they want to make sure you're you and not a scammer,
Hmm.
but they will send you your tax returns going back. So if you
Wow.
don't know where to start, that is where I would recommend you start.
That's great
Now,
advice.
yeah, because I think, especially with people that are victims of financial abuse,
Hmm.
they just don't know. They
Yep.
don't know where to start. And there's so much beautiful information on the tax return. That's where I'd go. I mean, also, if you have access to like bank statements, credit card statements, check registers, all that's good. Do that too.
Yep.
Um, that's a big one. The other thing I don't think is known enough, and again, this tends to surprise people, is When you file for divorce, you are more at risk for identity theft than any other time.
Wow.
And it's not from someone you know typically. It's just when you think about the fact that divorce records, like when you file the paperwork, it's publicly available and all the information that you have to put on there. I feel like people did not think this one through.
I didn't
So
even realize that. I mean,
mhm,
that's crazy.
I agree. You're
Oh,
not wrong.
wow. Wow. I didn't
So
even think about that.
one of the things I recommend for all of my clients, because most people don't think about that, is go to all the credit reporting agencies and freeze your credit.
Okay.
Sign up for a Credit Karma account so you can actually see what activity is happening.
So smart.
Yeah.
What's the
I
difference between freezing your credit and isn't there another one too?
mm,
Locking, freeze and lock.
they
Are
might be
they the
two words
same
for the
thing?
same thing.
Okay.
And legally they have to do it for free.
Okay.
You can also I recommend three credit reporting agencies, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. There are a few others out there, but that's the biggest one.
Got it. Okay.
And again, they'll do it for free. I think by law, they have to give you each credit or each reporting agency has to give you one free credit report per year. So if you want to pull your credit, every 4 months, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
And the pushback I get is, does it cost money? No.
Hmm.
What if I need to apply for a credit card during this? You can like put on a temporary, unfreeze. So let's say you're applying for a credit card, so give yourself 3 to 5 days, unfreeze it, and then it will let you automatically put the date to refreeze. I
So
I do
smart.
rec- Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess that would apply to anybody if there's a modification of child support happening even 10 years after you're divorced, you have
Yeah,
to file your sworn financial statements again. And so anytime your financial information is getting published as public record, take the step
yeah,
right around that.
like
Yeah, that's so smart.
yeah. And actually, if you're thinking about littles, like you might want to consider freezing theirs too.
Wow.
And that's actually advice I give to almost all parents because the stats on identity theft for young children, like I don't know how old kids are in your life, but before I had kids, apparently Nickelodeon had a deal where like you can sign up for your kid and you put in their birth date and the character will call you and they were excited. Then they got hacked.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
Oh
a whole
no.
bunch of kids' birthdays and personal information was just out there. So as a result, consider just do it. It's not going to cost you anything. It's another step. It's free.
I'm just going to make a little note for myself right
Right?
now. Yeah. Oh, that's
Um,
great advice, Brianna.
yeah. Another question I get asked on this topic is I think my ex might be hiding money or he has an account, but I don't know where it is.
Hmm.
What do I do?
Yep.
And you've got a variety of tools at your fingertips. So, one, like I have a number of clients who find out that they have stuff under their credit history that they had no idea about, right?
Yeah.
Two, there's something called a checks report, CHEX. You do have to pay for it, but you can run it on other people.
Okay. Checks
And
report.
mhm,
Okay.
um, if you think it is more egregious than like, I just need to know where the accounts are, I need to give my lawyer some place to start,
Hmm.
you might want to consider a forensic accountant. And the reason why I recommend forensic accountants is they tend to have access to software and experience analyzing, all those little line items and accounts to identify patterns to help attorneys better identify, you know, patterns that they can bring up in court.
Hmm.
So, in the example of using a forensic accountant, I actually had one case where the other party was a lawyer and he thought he was going to game the system. And during discovery, he gave something insane like 40,000 separate pieces of paper. And he's like,
Wow.
this is too much data. They're not going to look through it all.
Yeah.
Anyway, the forensic accountant has software they can scan per page.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were able to put it all in a spreadsheet. It was beautiful. Anyway, so in that scenario, there was a pattern that was buried in all of those pages of documents where like 20,000 here, 15,000 there, 10,000 here. So when it finally went to court, the attorney had the ex on the stand and said, "Hey, on this date out of this account, $20,000 went out. Where'd it go? On this date at this time, here's 15,000. It looks like it went to the same place. Where is that?" You
Yeah.
know? And there are other examples where like self-employed individuals will be doing something very similar where yeah.
I
Well,
was just going to say people without regular W-2s, that's the big red
mhm,
flag clients that I have.
yeah,
If your ex owns their own business, self-employed, has multiple businesses, has an LLC, you go
yeah.
for the K1,
Mhm.
but instead of the W-2, the K1 is like the total earnings, right? Because if you're
Well, Colorado allows you to add so much back in, so you're not just going off the IRS number. And
right,
I think that's so powerful. So you don't have to go through the hassle of, let's say, a lifestyle analysis. Feel like, dude, I was driving a BMW. Don't tell me that you're broke.
right, right. Yeah, right. That's so smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a really high earning spouse or if they own their own business, forensic accountant for sure.
I'd say, yeah. And most of the forensic accountants I work with are very transparent about whether or not you actually need them or like, hey, save your money. Because I
Okay.
mean, price wise, I've seen it anywhere from as little as 3 grand up to 11 grand. Like,
Mm,
it's not cheap.
yeah. Yeah. But if it's worth it, it's worth it.
Well, especially like, again, you're thinking about your future needs. Like, I'm trying to think of another example. Like, insurance is something that I think almost everyone doesn't think about and they're surprised by the cost at the end.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's worth it at that point
Yep.
in time if you're spending 11 grand to like identify several hundred thousand or even a million in some cases. Like,
Yep.
yes, your
Yeah.
future is worth it. And like, if you don't want to think about you, think about your kids, like orthodontia, school expenses, college.
Yep.
Like, it benefits everyone for you to be on solid footing, you know?
Yep. Yes. And something I try to remind my clients because they feel like, oh, that's so icky. That feels really icky that I'm doing that. Um, if you're put in a position where you feel like someone isn't being honest in the divorce process, that's not something that you're choosing. That's their doing. And this is you standing up for yourself and protecting your future and your children's future. So just remember that, right? This is their doing, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. But if we are talking about people that have their own businesses, another thing I point out is when was the last time it was valued?
Mm,
Because one, the economy is changing all the time, and two, there is a difference between a perception of value and the actual value. And to the point of how expensive forensic accounts are, you know better than anyone, like how expensive lawyers can get.
yeah.
Like, is it worth fighting for the asset? I had another scenario where one party was accusing the other party of undervaluing their business by a lot. And they went through everything. And after an embarrassing amount in lawyer's fees, the business was worth a fraction of what they thought. And if they
Yeah.
had done the valuation in advance, they'd been like, okay, like I'm saving myself several $100,000 in lawyer's fees to be like, that's not it. Just give me a cut of the income at the end.
Right. Smart. Smart.
Yeah. Um, do you have any other questions at this point? Otherwise, I'm happy to keep going. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, you're giving really great information. Keep going. I'm sucking it all up like a sponge.
Okay. So the next question series of questions that get asked tend to be on retirement accounts. So we talked about with Social Security, spousal benefits are available to you as long as you've been married for more than 10 years and you're unmarried at the time of divorce, or I'm sorry, at the time of filing. So I had a case actually in Minnesota where I had the pleasure of chatting with a woman who had been married 3 times,
Hmm.
10 years each. She's like, which one do I take? I'm like, oh, it's really easy. You pick the highest one.
Hmm.
It doesn't affect anyone, I promise. The other thing to be aware of with Social Security is if your ex were to unfortunately pass away, or non unfortunately, you may be available or you may be eligible for survivor's benefits. So that's additional money for you that I think it is worth knowing whether or not your ex is alive. They're not going to come knocking on your door for that benefit.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying, and I think I didn't register what you were saying before. You are entitled to a portion of your ex's Social Security earnings.
Yeah. And it's not something you negotiated. Like, actually, I think that might be my biggest pet peeve is when a settlement options. Oh, by the way, you get spousal benefits. Like, no,
And this is
there,
separate from
there's,
spousal maintenance,
there's,
completely.
yeah.
Alimony.
That's also why Social Security typically isn't included in spousal maintenance calculations, is because the
Wow.
spousal benefit is automatic. The other thing to be aware of, and they just changed this, I think last year, the year before, they used to take out or reduce your Social Security for if you had a pension, like a state pension or a federal pension, because
Mhm.
you weren't paying into Social Security, but let's say your spouse or ex-spouse was. Like, I've had a couple scenarios where like a school teacher with like para,
Yeah.
they've have beautiful para pension. They're very proud of it because they worked hard for it. And their spouse was a breadwinner. And let's say the Social Security was, I think in the example I'm thinking of, it was close to 7,000 and the spousal benefit is half of that, so 3,500. And
Mm.
the way the calculation worked before the change to the law is the spousal benefit was nominal. They wouldn't get anything really. Fast forward to now, the way it's written, even with the pension, you'd get the full 3,500. So people might have thought it doesn't matter. It does now.
Wow. And this is only if the other party passes or not, even if
No,
they're alive. And when does that kick in?
when you file.
Okay.
So as early as age 62.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. And very often people come to me like, does it make sense to do it now, later? What do we do? And let's say you have no idea what your spousal benefit would be.
Mhm.
You can schedule an appointment with your local Social Security office, and they're going to ask you for your marriage certificate. So please don't ritualistically burn it. I've had clients do that. And if you did, you can go to the county where you were married and request a copy. It's okay.
Yeah.
A copy of your divorce decree, your social, and his social. And then they will pull that information for you.
Brianna, I can't believe I've never heard this before. This is a huge golden nugget. Thank you.
I agree.
Wow.
And I think it's very meaningful because a lot of the clients I run into is like, how will I live? Where will I live? How will I eat? We
Yeah.
just talked about it. You deserve to eat. Please eat.
Right.
Um, have a safe place to live where you feel like you can thrive. Um, Money matters. It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's safety for sure.
It is. Yeah. Um, so that's Social Security. Outside of Social Security, retirement accounts tend to be the second biggest asset in most households. So I get a lot of questions around that.
Yeah.
So there's something called a QDRO. It stands for Qualified Domestic Relations Order. Typically, you go to an attorney to do that that specializes in quadros. If you are comfortable with it, there are people who are not attorneys who put together that paperwork too. You only need that for 401ks, 403bs, 401as. If you have an IRA, for example, you don't typically need one. What you would do is you would go to the company that has the IRA, you would show them your divorce decree, and they tell you what paperwork you need at that point in time. Um,
And this is
eh,
only if you're splitting retirement accounts.
mhm,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Um, Usually it's a pretty big source for people, so it does matter. And
Yeah.
again, how will I live? I mean, women typically live longer than men. It matters.
Sure. And is there a
Um,
pretty big hit that people take with that? Like if you're gonna Is there a big financial tax if you split a retirement account? Obviously, you're not pulling out of it to start pulling early from retirement, but do they ding you for the divorce?
Oh, great news. There are varieties of ways you can do this. I help people strategize all the time. So, for example, and keep in mind, most of the laws are written by people whose parents got divorced in the 80s and their mother was screwed. So they are actually very thoughtful.
Perfect. Love that.
I
Love that.
know. I appreciate that fact. Anyway, so with a quadro, QDRO, why are you paying an attorney to friggin' write up another document? It's fucking expensive. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. But if you're doing it under those laws, let's say it's a 401k, you've
Mhm.
got two options. You can either take the money and move it to an IRA, or there's something called a spousal 401k. It's not available everywhere, but it's available some places. And if you do that, or you can cash out. So if you cash out, you're paying all the taxes, no penalty though. If you decide to move it to an IRA, during the move, you have a one-time opportunity to take money out. So for example, I very often have clients who are moving into new houses, or they need new furniture, or they're setting themselves up for their next life, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like this is a seamless, oh, it takes money.
Yeah.
So you are going to pay income taxes on it, but you're not going to pay the 10% tax. If you do the spousal 401k option, for example, I know for a fact that Fidelity and Vanguard offer this. Everywhere else, I'd say TBD, ask. You don't have to do the one time, you can just do it over time. So, for example, I have a client who has a spousal 401k, and the reason she has it is she knows she's going to want to buy a house. Right now, she's renting because she doesn't know where she wants to live, what she wants to do. Like everything's in flux, and I'd argue doing the smart thing in terms of figuring it out before she puts a lot of money down, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, the spousal 401k option gives her the flexibility, like I can leave it tax deferred. I'm not paying the taxes right now. And when I find my house, I know that I will have a tax hit at that time.
Mhm.
So it is meaningful.
Wow. Okay. So you would get you would be paying the same standard tax rate to make like an early draw, but you're not going to get hit with a fee for moving things around or pulling things out.
Correct. So if
Okay.
you're under the age of 59 and a half, there's
Mhm.
typically a 10% penalty, tax fee, whatever.
Mhm.
You're paying it to Uncle Sam. It sucks.
Yep.
In addition to paying taxes, let's say, so instead of 24%, you're paying 34%.
Right.
That
Right.
sucks. But if you're only paying 24%, or for example, you can limbo into a situation where you've got a low tax year and you're in like the 12 or 18% tax brackets, like, hey, maybe this is a good time to withdraw a certain amount or do it over time, you know?
That's really smart. That's
Mhm.
really smart. Wow. Okay, so you mentioned Vanguard, and what was the other one that offer those
Fidelity.
spousal fidelity? Okay, great.
No,
Good to know.
actually, I argue Fidelity is surprisingly empathetic and awesome if you call their divorce line. Like
They have a divorce line. I love
they
that.
do, and they actually offer resources too. I don't work
Wow.
for Fidelity, but I can tell you that they are very, very nice to my clients.
Wow. That's good to know.
Hmm.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll be reaching out to them to see what
Yeah,
they can offer my clients. Perfect.
yeah. Um, let's see. Any other questions you tend to have? I mean, I'd say if there's a military situation like TSPs or military pensions,
Yep.
those actually require something different. So TSPs require a DRO, a domestic relations order.
Mhm.
Military pensions, oh my goodness, it can be a pain in the ass if you do it wrong and you have to go back and fix it. But it's a military pension order.
Okay.
And typically, the same attorneys who will do the quadro will do the MPO or the DRO.
Mhm.
Check that they have experience doing that with DFAPs.
Got it.
Um, it makes a difference. And I can tell you, I've seen so many horror stories. It can be worth it to pay for someone to do that for you to make sure it's done right the first time and you get your money. Because again, I can tell you for all of my clients, they earn that money. It's their money and they need
Yeah.
to have it in their name.
Right. Right. What about um So like 529 accounts for your kids. If you and the spouse were paying in jointly to a 529, what do you recommend people do in that scenario? Like, do they split it? Do they
It's
leave
a
it in
great
there? Do they
gray
like
area.
what do we do?
So I tend to see two different scenarios. One where there's enough money to go around and both parents genuinely love their kids, and they will often say, "This is the kids' money. We're not arguing about that." I've had a few situations where one party will say, "Well, in a show of good faith, will you put it in my name? So I am now the in charge, but the beneficiary always stays the same."
Mhm.
Then there are other scenarios where, yes, you are fighting over it. And let's say one spouse is using it as a pawn to hold over the kid's head.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And very often the opposing counsel will say, "Dude, you opened this 529 to benefit your kid. What are you doing here?"
Mhm.
And I can tell you, I'm in El Paso County, Colorado. All the judges here tend to take that best interest of the child standard really seriously. And if one party is like holding on to the 529 and saying, "No, it's mine,"
Mhm.
they're raising their eyebrows
Mhm.
hard, like to their hairline. And they're like,
Mhm.
"What exactly are you doing here?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not really a difficult thing. And if you're trying to change it from one owner to the other, because it's pursuant, fancy lawyer word, to divorce,
Mhm.
um, it's not a taxable event. And especially if the beneficiary is not changing, it's not it's not going to change anything really.
Good to know. And if you opened one for your child with your spouse,
Mhm.
right? What
So
if you
typically it's
wanna
individually owned.
okay.
So,
I was just gonna say, can you open another one? If you were both
oh yeah,
contributing to one when you were married, could you open another one for your child after divorce that you solely control?
100%.
Okay.
And your kid's not limited to, oh, he can only be the beneficiary of one. I've got
Okay.
several examples of people who open 529s for each grandkid or each niece or nephew. And like everyone has their own because they don't trust anyone else and they want to make sure that they have control, but it really is going to the kid.
Sure. Sure. And people can't take anything out of that, right? So like your child's the beneficiary, somebody, grandma or ex-spouse can't take that money out.
Let's chat about it. There are a variety of ways that you can game that system.
Okay.
There's a laundry list of expenses that you can do that. 529s and cover deal accounts, theoretically now Trump accounts, but they work differently. Um, so they have expenses that are allowed to be taken out without penalty.
Okay.
And it's a weird area because there are federal laws and then there are state laws. So, for example, I have a client that in the state of Colorado could not use her 529 to pay for her kids' tuition.
Hmm.
They moved to Florida, they're allowed to do that. But
Interesting.
federal laws say they are deferring to the state on that one.
Got it. Good to know. Good to know.
So there are a variety of rules for what you do, and you just have to provide receipts.
Got it. Okay.
Let's say in the example I shared where one party is holding onto the 529 is like a pawn to have control or access to their kid, right? And the kid says, "I am setting a hard boundary. I don't want anything to do with you." They're over 18. So the court can't even say, like, "Go see your dad," right? In that scenario, what happens if he decides to follow through on his debt or his threat of not paying another penny towards her college expenses? What happens there? What could this possibly benefit him for, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Let's go through that what if. So let's say he changes the beneficiary to himself. And I use a him because I'm thinking of a him in this example. It could be a her. Um, so they change it to themselves. They have 15 years of them being the beneficiary before you can roll it into a Roth, which, by the
Mm.
way, is a gray area in the state of Colorado. So TBD on what the legislature decides. Other states you can.
Okay.
You could, let's say that person decides to liquidate it, their taxes and penalties at that point in time.
Good to know. And these would all be events that there would be a paper trail for all of this. This isn't something they could do behind the scenes without you knowing. There would be, yeah. Okay. That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
And one would like to think that that would not be the typical scenario, but the cases that I work with, people are doing that kind of stuff all the time.
You work with a subset. I'd
I do.
say I work with a variety. I work from the, hey, we're just trying to make everything fair
Hmm.
to that guy is an asshole, or I work with males too. That female is an a-hole, and
Hmm.
I'm trying to make sure I don't get screwed. Like, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed. What do I do?
Yeah.
So I have a little bit more of a scenario, but yes, and the subset that you're referring to, you're right. They're more likely to have issues.
Okay. Well, that's helpful information to know that that is possible for them to do that. So, you'll
Yeah, it
want to
is.
make sure that you write that into an agreement that the names don't get changed, the beneficiaries don't get changed, there's no strings attached. That's helpful for me to know that that's a possibility. So I'll make sure to put that in my separation agreements with my clients moving forward if there is a fair chunk of cash in that 529.
Outside of the 529, if you are helping dictate what should happen in separation agreements, let's go back to the IRA thing and
Yep.
actually the Quadro thing too.
Yep.
Any separation of accounts. So I can tell you the US financial system is going to require both parties to sign. And almost never, as in I've yet to see this in real life, have all of the paperwork been prepared so you can sign on the divorce decree day.
Yeah.
So, what I found as a best practice is putting in a signing deadline.
Yep. Super smart.
And yeah, I have some attorneys that will set it up with the other party. So, one party shows up in one conference room with a notary, they sign a stack of paperwork. The other party shows up in a different conference room, either with the same or a different notary, signs the same stack, and then the attorneys will courier
Yeah.
the
Yep.
paperwork to each party. And that has reduced a lot of headache.
We always put deadlines. There's always deadlines for everything and every separation agreement forever. The end.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Brianna, I want to ask one other question, well, maybe two. But I do want to be mindful of time because we've got
Sorry.
about no,
I
that
can
was
talk all day on this. Sorry.
this please don't apologize. I learned several new things during this conversation that I did not know before that I will be folding into my work and that I'm sure, all the people watching are going to just raise their eyebrows. Why didn't I know about that? I mean, these are things that my attorney didn't even tell me during the divorce process, right?
I mean, to the attorney's credit, they're experts in the law, not finances. They're not experts in emotion, as you know.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's almost like a stay in your lane, friend.
Mhm. That's right. That's right. That's why we talk about a team, right?
Yeah,
The attorneys are not all knowing.
they're not.
Um, so what is the biggest sort of divorce financial misconception that you hear people coming into your office, they're talking about it and they're like, I was told fill in the blank, that you're like, why do people keep saying this? This is inaccurate.
Oh, I actually did a CLE on this. It happened
Oh,
so
wow.
much.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, taxes.
Okay.
They're real. They suck, and things are taxed differently. So I want to say my first. I've got two, but I had one case earlier in my career where the attorney's like, okay, the house is worth 500,000, the retirement account is worth 500,000, and he looks at everyone and says, "Why split the baby?" And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Because they're taxed differently, and the money you're getting after tax on the house is different than the money you're getting after tax on the retirement account. And this has come up in a variety of scenarios. So if there are let's say primary residence,
Hmm.
you actually get a tax exclusion if you sold your house by yourself of $250,000. That's
Okay.
$250,000 tax free.
Wow.
If you were to sell it with your ex, you each get 250,000. So that's a total of 500,000 tax free.
That's
So
incredible.
it is. I got
And do you
lucky.
have to spend that tax credit all in one tax year, or can you roll it into multiple different years? Sorry, that's probably a
No, it's
C.
okay. Um, No, so it's not a CPA question, but you're doing it. So let's say you sell the house for $1 million
Mm-hmm.
and you have some mortgage left over. So part of that goes away,
Yep.
300,000. Let's say you have some realtor and selling expenses. Let's say that's, 10%. I don't know, 6%, pick a number. So let's say 6%, 60,000. So 360,000 of arguable expenses that are already written off.
Yep.
That then leaves, what is that? Close to 640,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you and your spouse sold it together, you get a $500,000 tax exemption. So now it's only 140,000 that you're paying taxes on.
That's
Let's say your
incredible.
house is less than $1 million and you have bigger expenses and
Wow.
the 500,000 exceeds the earnings, then you just got all the earnings from your house tax free.
So sell the house jointly.
I would argue that. Again, you know that in highly conflicted scenarios, it's easier said than done.
Yes.
There's a reason CDREs, for example, have a job
Yeah.
and they can be court appointed. There
Yep.
are other real estate professionals that can do that too. I would just argue there's a reason that that exists, is because sometimes it's easier said than done.
Sure. Sure.
And just to compare that to every dollar coming out of your IRA is taxed at ordinary income, there is no tax exemption there.
So that's just fascinating because I've seen so many people try to simplify it by saying, well, why don't you take this asset and you take that asset, and then it's just less paperwork. But one of you is getting dinged with a huge tax event and the other is just getting a tax credit. I mean, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. That's good to
Mhm.
know. That's really good to know.
Also be aware if they're rentals, there's depreciated taxes that may make it a higher taxable event to sell than you're aware of.
Got it.
So that would be an example of why you find someone like me.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good perspective shift to take into consideration. Um, there was one other question that I was going to ask you, which just flew out of my brain. You said you had another one. That was the first one, the misconception. What was the second one?
Oh no, I had two examples on the same
Oh,
thing.
okay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. And then if there's one sort of takeaway that you want people to walk away from this conversation with, or something you want them to know or think about or pause and consider when they're approaching the financial side of divorce, what would that be?
In divorce, knowledge is power. It is worth it to have a team around you.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that keeps proving itself true for so many of my clients and in my personal experience as well, over and over again. And so, that just ties back into what we were talking about right at the beginning. You have to assemble a team to help you understand what you have no idea is coming, right? We don't know what we don't know, and it's key to rely on the professionals in these situations. So,
Yeah.
Brianna, thank you. That was incredibly helpful. I so appreciate you taking your time to donate your wisdom to us today. I can't thank you enough. For folks who have questions for Brianna or want to get in contact with her after today's conversation, I'm going to share. I'm not sure why that's happening there. Bring call back here. There it
It's
is.
okay.
Now we
You have
can
my
see it.
information handy. It's
There it
there.
is. Okay. Take a screenshot of Brianna's information if you want to get in contact with her, if you have other questions. Thank you so much again, Brianna. I want to let everybody know about the next Lunch and Learn is on June 24th with husband and wife therapist duo Corinne and Cameron Kears. They are they're going to give us a really, sorry if you can see my kitty, it's my emotional support kitty. He likes to pop up during conversations. We're going to have a really honest conversation about attachment, abuse cycles, and mindfulness tools to pull you out of trauma cycles. So we look forward to seeing you at that next one. Keep an eye out for registration info there. And just one more heads up that I am going to be hosting a workshop about documentation and how to turn chaos into credible evidence. That starts June 2nd for 4 weeks. I will put information about that in the YouTube notes as well. And then I'll gather all the good little bits and pieces of information from Brianna and my conversation today and put those in the YouTube description as well. Thank you all so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you at the next Lunch and Learn event. Brianna, thank you again. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.